Laman dangon buen jensen jambe yang chanza lo kanje lo zhen zhen nian zhen zha nian da nan da rab sa jin nian den gen ji xian sen zhen nian jian dong ka le ban zhe kanda se be zhen ra ma re men do dong an jian se Ronzo kun lai bun jie dar zi, yan lai zhu ju yang den so. Zhong zhai zhi zhui nian moi nian long, lin jian jiang zhong zhong zi ji. Ma ri men sen dong ai nian gui, jin nian chen zi rang zhi. Dun nian ta jian san jian dar zi, yan den lin zon jiang se do wei gu. Qiu zhai zhu dai zhu nian yan zhi, da le men sen zhang bei yang la. Umaram bazana indin senden jengi jera wensan jendale de mo mbarazan kada den je jong lo ndo ba ye lo de bo be na wa zan do so hong sen da ren de ba jong sen che waran de na Mambo jang yang jin nian nian ge men bara yang tong wara shu. Wen san dur zen ga ra shi re sen ben ma jen ba ni shu. So so nam nya den den jang san so en gan dre la ma nam lo so wa de. Oyen sanje nian ben tong jian sen dren jian zhong dong jian zi ko le jian. Zhong zhe sam ye ni de den zhe gen chong zhe len be shab la so wan de. Jian bai jian la li me nam pa ya se lan jie yang se zhe sa ba. Kabai den den ben man dong a lin zhang yang jian zi huang bo so wai de. Andre long jian bei re nam ban zhong zhen jian nam he xing de lam so che. Re men den zhen yan den jiang zhen de lun zhen da ye sha lai so wai de. Women Junji Inje Bodhan Nende Zon Sanje Genje Ngo Ransen Chungu Ngon Denze Be Sawe Lame Shabla Sowan Manam Gadanyan Besim Jendamje Dende Sanje Kopan La Popar Chewe Chedun Dagi 담배치에서 뭐 년에 대념서랑 어디요 냠이 창조적으로 쌤게데 쌤버차우
I request you all to listen with the motivation that we listen to the teaching in order to establish all sentient beings equal in extent to space, who have all been our mothers and who are our mothers on the in the state of the lasting eternal happiness of Buddhahood.
그네 강시 쌤버차에 주디 남의 두두 프로젝트를 기 지된데라 그네 담보문제 직절 이방문도 같이 엠바 순방문도 냠낸 게팅 디숨 시바 문도디 입장 속사 인출 nga mundu yewa che nga shuge bale karanji kapsu baba nga mundu yewa nanglaves.
So for the general explanation of the preliminary practices, for the Guru's heart practice, dispeller of all obstacles, there are 5 topics. The meaning of the words, preliminary practices, or mundro. Then the way in which the preliminary practices are important, and the practice of the extensive, medium, and concise preliminary practices, and how the preliminary practices purify obscurations and gather the accumulations. And the 5th and last topic is the types of preliminary practices, and we're now on the 5th and last topic on the types of preliminary practices. And so there are 3 different types of preliminary practices: the preliminary practice of the material items, the preliminaries to the meditation session, and the preliminaries to the main part. And now we are on the 3rd of those 3, which is the preliminaries to the main part. So now in this part on the preliminaries to the main part in this topic, now we're talking about pronunciation and the 4 thoughts that turn the mind from samsara as the first part of the preliminaries to the main part. So there within the preliminaries to the main part, there are the common preliminaries and the uncommon preliminaries. And now we're on we're discussing the common preliminaries, starting with the which have to do with the renunciation. So, within this topic of renunciation, there are also 5 topics. The first being how renunciation is important, the reasons, explanation of why it is important, how it's important, and then secondly, why we need it, in that aspect of why we need renunciation. Then thirdly, the cause, how the cause of renunciation is the suffering and so on. And then the next topic is what prevents us from understanding suffering, which is the cause of renunciation. And finally, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind from samsara is the final topic. So among those 5, now we're on the 4th, which is what prevents us from understanding the truth of suffering and understanding suffering, which is the cause for renunciation.
동al 깨버 채무 주게 나라 드네 레로 남행 지쇼 직견치제 아니 고베 존난기 자와라 신진 차과 옆에 낭레 아니 레로당 남행 시스바레 다른 지쇼 주빈스 지쇼는 고중 주빈스.
So now there's 5 different things, five different things that I will explain as the factors that prevent us from understanding suffering. The first one is laziness, then distraction, then procrastination, putting off what you should do into later. And then the fourth one is the 8 worldly concerns, being caught up in the 8 worldly concerns. And then finally, the last thing that prevents us from understanding suffering is the being attached to this diluted reality of samsara that we are in, having a clinging and attachment to that.
네, 지쇼를 시바데 드네 가랑 쪽이다 자와직 고쪽네 텐디 자와디 드네 달로 지기메 제말로라 제기 삼네 뒤즈마 실라 치 뒤즈파 장나 아니 텔 지쇼를 시그레스.
So as far as procrastination, what this refers to is when we start some activity or another. We plan to do some activity or another, and then we say, for example, oh, I won't do it this year, I'll wait until next year, and we put off that activity until later.
당하는 조변나디 문도대 당한 냠nen적인 삼비제라 양 당하 달에 당하 디지털화 잡고 종사를 제말로라 적인 삼니드니 근데 제마 제말로라 빼셔봐이나 근데 지쇼 차기를 근데 택마직 제바이나 로 제말라 레베까블라 양 계랑 들어와지기를 절바기 양데 야 당하 로 제마대 제도 말제 제마기 로디라 적인 있는데 내스네 로파 유령부 양네드니 뒤서 털어만 보셔비요래 근데기 지쇼 그 왕도 두고요래 근데 제철 그 왕도 들어와이나 저랑 동알 시에기 냠낸 제기요나 동알데 시에 주고요 말해.
So so how this works is that for example, if we are planning to practice the Ngundro practices, the preliminary practices, and then we say to ourselves, oh, I'm kind of busy right now, I won't do it now because I have too many other things to do, so I will just do it, start it next year. And then when that time comes around to the next year, when you were planning, when you told yourself you're going to start the preliminary practices, then again the same thing will happen. Again, there's some other things you're doing and you think you're too busy again, and it will just keep on getting put off. And this kind of process that we get into, it wastes our time and it wastes our opportunity. And in this case, as we are trying to understand suffering, understand the truth of suffering, then for our case here, we will never be able to get to that practice. We will waste our time, and this procrastination habit will prevent us from understanding suffering.
대인데 되는 거랑 좀 냠nen체네 대부 토베라 되는 바 장릉도 두고요래. 장릉도 두네 깝깝라 되는 장릉 타네 되는 대부 메타베 되는 양 착스기를.
So with this kind of habit, our attainment of the results that we want will keep on getting further and further away. It will take longer and longer. And it's also possible that it will happen that because it keeps on getting put off and put further away and taking longer and longer, that we will never actually get there and get the result that we want.
배낭랑기다 말하나고에 대부디 예정로와 딱 예정디 되니 똑바로 쳐발라 되니 동을 쉐버 쳐고요라 다 동을 쉐버 쳐배기 남디나 맞죠용 신발 남 신발라 되니 영도디 되니 지쇼 쳐디 바 양용디 되니 가르쳐거래 동아디 시트고 말에 동아디 마시 소나 그니 예중 토발라 장ring 로 젤리테 젤리테 치타
So what we need, what we're practicing here is generating renunciation within ourselves. And in order to do that, we need to, it's crucial to understand suffering, understand the reality of suffering, the truth of suffering. And if, for example, we get into this habit of procrastination with this practice, and we keep on putting off contemplating suffering and really putting effort into understanding suffering, then we will get caught up in other things, and our life will go another direction. And in the end, it will be too late, and we will never be able to do it.
되게 제가 되는 직된 체계 선에 안에 대비 촉시당 매대비 촉시여레스 안에 대비 촉대 가르스나 니 대작 송래 니스나 그네 균노롱제 응나라 톱나 가보여봐 대초대 되기래 대신들은 하나 소기부 셈기부 등하나서 되기래 되는 대래 되바래 대 이때 작스나 하나서 깨라 전부 자야라 가보여래 되라 작래 대신나 미기 떠바체네 기랑나 떠바체나 기랑 가기래 대 되베 초들라 만주 가보여래.
So now to get into the next part of it, there's the 8 worldly concerns. So basically there's among the 8 worldly concerns, they're divided into 4 things that we want, 4 things that are desirable, and then 4 things that generally we don't want or undesirable. So for the 4 things that we want or desirable, there is these 4 are like acquisition of wealth and so on, happiness and fame and praise. So the first one, which is the acquisition of wealth, this is like a wanting material things for ourselves, money and what have you. And we get into this mode of getting attached to that and wanting this material wealth, material things. And then the happiness, the second one, is like just wanting to be really comfortable in our body and the mind, and be happy in that way and get really attached to that kind of comfort and happiness. Then the third one is fame. So this means this refers to how we get attached to being famous and being well known, having a good reputation and so on. And then the fourth one is praise. So this is when this refers to us being caught up in wanting people to say good things about us and praise us, compliment us, and so on, being attached to that. So it's really true for all of us, right? That when we get something very nice, what some kind of product or something we may get, some material thing like that, we like that, and then and due to us liking this kind of thing, these kind of things that we get, then we get attached to them, and then there's we get caught up in a whole process where we get attached to these material things, and then we want to accumulate more and more of them, and then we want to protect what we've accumulated, and then also to increase that more and more.
Ni sapotang songwatang pelwal thela cheyo na da digire inayang rang to cheyo mare sanyi shidugi lo mangu chan da gebo chane sanyi shidugi na tandoya saksung pel che digre saksung pel tela rang to che dabuji yoba che dabuji yoba ina da yagures ma digase sagin digase sungin digase pelgin che dabuji yana da digire ko che dabuji na lo shinga ko 균을론데 삭송벨된 디고르 디마라 삭송벨된 미세 마시버도 삭송벨 치기로.
So as far as this kind of what we do with our material acquisitions, of accumulating more of them and then trying to protect what we've accumulated to prevent us from losing any of it, and then also trying to increase it more and more. This would be okay if there was a limit to it, if we set the right limit on those activities of accumulating, protecting, and increasing our material acquisitions. If we just do that for a certain amount of time and then stop, that'd be okay. But what happens is that we end up spending our whole life doing that.
네 이바데 대화라 차고로 먼저 기부 전화드는 먼저 배 가그리. 근데 디 기부들라 차네 드네 취치되게 선발리기 말. 가장 예정도 중알매나 예정 랩트고도 동알 거기도 기부 연나드는 예정 가는 랩기 말아와.
And then the second of these 8 worldly concerns is the attachment to happiness and comfort, like fun, happy times and comfort. So what happens here is that we get attached to being in a kind of happy and fun, comfortable situation. And then if we are always just concerned with being in this kind of comfortable, happy situation, then we will never get the inspiration to practice Dharma. Our minds will never go towards the Dharma. And this is what we need, as Drupla explained before, what we need in order to inspire us to practice Dharma and to urge us on to practice Dharma is suffering, and to understand the suffering. So if we're always caught up, attached in just being comfortable and happy, and we won't be able to do that.
Somebody around to get a simple and to Kagirwa, my Lumbala get a simple using us, not tumbling like get out use. Can it get along omni, Tigra, take it on Mom Sarvachella, take it out the co the shitter cups to take it out the chitra.
And also we really enjoy being famous. If somebody is famous in their in the place that they're from, and everybody knows their name, and they have a lot of fame in their own country, is generally it's considered something very good. People like that, they like to be famous in their own country, even famous around the world, and so on. And so then when we get involved with searching after fame, then we will just be caught in this mode of having that kind of conceit of being famous, and spend our time caught up in that. And then, but then in the end, after we die, when we die, that fame will not help us at all. We can't carry it with us after we die. And then for the third one, or the fourth one, which is the praise, This is something that we all like as well, isn't it? When people praise us and compliment us, and they tell us, "Oh, you're a really good person. You're really honest and a great person." We really like that, and we get attached to that kind of praise and compliment. And then what happens when we get attached to this being praised and complimented that way is that again we spend our life and our energy in this kind of pursuit, that mode.
만소 드니 깨라지 중나 삼배 깨라기 초라 드니 파 디지털기래 드니 말아 미기 떠버스 잡고 채나 삼배 텔라 드니 파 디지털기래 티깔와라 땡데 미기 떠버 잡 계란 깨다 첨부 차송아 이나양 계란라 나절기지기 규로 잡
So when we get into this kind of mode, then we will always have this kind of intention or wish. I hope people will make me famous. I hope I can be famous. And I hope people will compliment me. I want people to compliment me and praise me and so on. And we spend our time with that pursuit, our time and energy on this pursuit. And then also as a result of this mode and this frame of mind, when people do actually praise you, or if you do actually become famous, what will happen is that it will just make you proud and arrogant.
드네 직된 체제는 셈바 15대 드네 대 단다 12기 시기 독촉 드네 예배기 독촉 많이 봐 견노 롱절로 써봐 마톱나 드네 고가기 말해 드네 대화매 봐 농알 중나 드네 고가기 말해 드네 깨작 매봐 근데 차송아 있나 드네 고가기 말해 미기 뛰어봐 맞잡나 드네 고가기 말해 대 미드베 촉시레스.
So then for the opposite of those first four of the 8 worldly concerns, these are the 4 things that we try to avoid or that we don't like. And so when we don't have material acquisitions and when we don't get these kind of things, money and material acquisitions, and rather maybe lose them, or we just don't have a lot of material acquisitions, we don't like that. And then also when we are not in a very comfortable and kind of fun and happy situation, we also don't like that. And if we're not famous, also, if nobody knows about us, then this also can become a situation that we don't like. And the same goes for being praised and complimented. If nobody ever praises us or compliments us, also we don't like this situation either.
다 된대기 직된 체제되라 되네 대배촉 랑기 대배촉시 대배촉시 여바 송장 대기 나라 차당이요 대배촉들라 착바 대배촉들라 당와 차당이 되네 펠리용.
So these 8 worldly concerns, there's the 4 undesirable, or the 4 desirable 8 worldly of the 8 worldly concerns, and the 4 undesirable of the 4 undesirable concerns out of those 8. And the other thing about these is that they give rise to attachment and aversion. So the 4 desirable concerns will make us more and more attached, give us rise to attachment, and the 4 undesirable concerns will give rise to aversion.
다 된대기 직된 체제 여바 된절라 그래라 그래 직된 바라 그래 단당하로도 직된 체계라 그도 직된 바기 되네 냠스 랑기디 되라 직된 체계라 직된 체라기도 담배 체라기면도
somebody who is caught up in these 8 worldly concerns, that kind of person was called a worldly person, mundane person, a worldly person. And this is because these are this goes with the name, the 8 worldly concerns. These are the concerns of the world. So when you're concerned with these concerns of the world, you are a worldly person. This is another way you could translate it is the 8 worldly dharmas. So these are called the 8 worldly dharmas. So it means they're they're the opposite, or they're not what we would call the sacred dharma or the true dharma that we want to practice. They're the worldly dharmas. And somebody who is practicing these 8 worldly dharmas, we would not call them, you can't call that person a Dharma practitioner of the true Dharma.
네, nga chöchigi yo lamne ani jikten chöje de yo shindo nga chöchigi nga chöba yin lamna tene chöba mahimba chado res. Korang khani chöba yin lab der modo tene ko chöba mahimba chado res.
So even if you say, okay, I'm going to practice Dharma, now I am practicing Dharma, but at the same time you're caught up in these 8 worldly concerns, then you're actually not really a Dharma practitioner at that time. Although you may call yourself a Dharma practitioner, if you're caught up in 8 worldly concerns, you don't really qualify as that.
tene chöba dela, chöba rab, chöba ding, chöba tamasene yesongwa ina tene jikten chöje pangna chöba rab na gres.
So if we divide the types of Dharma practitioners into the highest level, the middling level, and the lowest level of Dharma practitioner, the highest level of Dharma practitioner is somebody who is completely free of these 8 worldly concerns.
jikten chöje burjum chena chöba ding is go. burjum sene jikten chöje par kye yang chu kak tuba ina ti chöba ding la gres.
And then if you are somebody who is able to counteract the 8 worldly concerns whenever they arise for you, then you would be the middle level practitioner. So this means this kind of practitioner, whenever they start to get caught up in the concerns or the concerns, where the concerns come up for them, they immediately are able to eliminate them and get free of them. That's the middle level of Dharma practitioner.
네, 타마벨라 jikten chöje kieda kegi yorde ina nyung mato kegi mare, sapsa kegi ore, tabu kegi ore, tende keba ina delo chöba tama la gres.
And then for the lowest level of Dharma practitioner, this is somebody who they have these 8 worldly concerns, but they are very kind of slight. They're not caught up with them too much. Just the 8 worldly concerns are very kind of low level for them. So this is the lowest level of Dharma practitioner.
네, 타마벨라 tene jikten chunanggi jikten chunangla shenjin chaba sibudo ande tangarando 상마 된다 chunanggi 왕도 차대요래 chunang 가리래 chunang 생인데 매바 시글라 여버전 바실라 chunang 생 에나 사리브 값을 tene 탁발은 룰도 심바스 된데지라 chunang 생.
So now for the final factor here, this is being attached to the deluded reality or the deluded appearances that we all experience. So we all have these this kind of diluted experience. We're all undergoing experience of delusion. And so what this is basically is taking something that doesn't exist to exist. And so the example is used is that we see a kind of colored rope, and then we take that rope to be a snake, even though there's no snake there.
장아랑도 상마 다 추낭스 등아랑도 상마 출배왕도 조이라 다 출배왕도 간데 센트고요레 세나 등아랑도 닭 메발란 닭 봐. 테니 나랑도 미장와라 짱와 테니 아니 미데와라 데와 미닭발라 딱바 생도 짱데 딱딱스 디시디 등아랑도 출디여다.
So we all are in this experience of delusion. Our reality is diluted, but how is it diluted? There's four basic ways. We take what is selfless to have a true self, and we take what is actually unclean, we take that to be clean, and we take what is actually suffering, we consider that to be happiness, and we take what is not lasting, we hold that, we take that to be actually lasting and permanent.
강가랑도 닭 메발라 드는가랑도 닭 스탄다가 생가랑도 짐바 용구도 이나양가랑기 수부 강라 닭 생이디 딱 신체나 드니 요마레 이나양가도 닭 짐바 닭 메발라 닭도 송딘 출르.
So we all have this sense of ourself. We all have this idea that, oh, this is me. I am here. I'm doing this. This is myself. We all have that kind of grasping at that idea. But then if we examine our body and so on, very carefully, we see that self actually does not exist. And so this is what is meant by this delusion, is that even though that self doesn't exist, we take it to be real. We think that there is some kind of self, and so this is the delusion of the self.
다음에 발란닥 송디 마임 발라티는 안주 임바지 송로와 다 다음에 발란닥 여바지 송디 다신 여바지 시기래. 되네 닭당 신지 잘래더니 차당쇼 차당라 때네더니 녀모바상 레상 되네 고로발라 줄거요. 되네 동아삼지미 잡으신 연구요.
So this is the basic meaning of delusion, is taking something that doesn't exist to exist. We think that there, even though there is no self, we think there is a self. We think we have a self. And then once we think we have a self, then automatically there comes the idea in our mind of the other. We automatically have the perception of an other. And due to this dynamic of the self and other, we give rise to all kinds of afflictions, negative emotions, and then accumulate all kinds of karma and experience a really terrible suffering as a result of this.
이바데 대화라 당가랑저 지든지 칸라 대화생데 요 말에 에나양가랑저 드니 동알 임바텔라 고마시 동알 임바텔라 드니 대화성을.
So then we also have the delusion of taking what is actually suffering to be happiness. And if we think about this world, there's actually no happiness in this world, no true happiness. And so what happens is that we don't actually recognize the suffering for what it is. We don't recognize the world of suffering. We don't recognize the suffering for what it is, and we take it to be happiness.
직딩직함라. 드네 동알기 동알 유럽의 동알 캬바도지기 동알기랑 신내 마대바된 아주 맛이 용도에 되는 거라서 대화지도 삼다 대화도 징그레스.
So in this world, we have three types of suffering. The suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and the all-pervasive suffering of the conditioned, of being conditioned or compounded. And so what happens is that we don't understand these kinds of suffering. We don't understand that, we don't recognize them. And so we take our experience to be happiness, and we have this kind of a false sense that these experiences are actually truly happiness.
전에 먼저라 캬바도지기 동알 전에 동알 차와시 요래. 드네 동알 차와디 드네 뉴바디 출 마테 용디 만솔라 드네 동알 메비 깝지 요래. 다 될랑 만저기 대화도 송대라. 아니 딘데기 대화대 드네 규르비 동알 지래. 뭐 규르로에기 동알 대화 강라 요래.
So there is this subtle type of suffering, the third type of suffering here, which is the all-pervasive suffering of the compounded phenomena, or the all-pervasive suffering of being compounded. So there is a state we can get into where we don't have any of the more like a gross type of suffering, but that subtle suffering of all-pervasive suffering of the compounded is still there. And then we will take that experience to be happiness. And then what happens is that that happiness is actually the suffering of change, the second type of suffering. So there's a so in this process of the changing, there is actually another kind of suffering. There's a suffering to that process of change.
대화되기 드네 동알 때 버치기. 대화에게 땡라 드네 동알데 갑대요. 동알 깨지 규다 버치 차르.
And this is because happiness actually, our experiences that we have as happiness, they will actually create suffering. They actually function to create more suffering. And it's that within our happiness, actually, that suffering is actually already there, hidden in the happiness. So this is how also our experiences of happiness is actually causes of suffering. So this is what is called the all-pervasive suffering of compounded phenomena, all-pervasive suffering of the compounded. It refers to that reality that within what we think of as happiness, within our happiness, this is actually pervaded by suffering in this way. That happiness is pervaded by suffering.
대화 예배값라 드네 동알 연말에 생각하는 저기 타 드네 저기 여러와 기부도 대부도 스타 동알 연말에 생각 저기 타 드네 저기 여러 이나요 오늘 드네 레도 말도 말한 적 딱지 제고 딱지 맞잖아 디 동알도 시에라 빨리 가고 그래 캬바도 저기 동알도 타와라 네 남상 먼저 시에두고 말해 동알 rak받된 저희는 먼저 시에 내라고 그래 동알 타와된 저는 먼저 릭바 땅데 흉 빼자라 소바 때에 되는 거랑 저 하고 같이 보고
So generally, when we have this kind of happiness that I've been describing, we have the real sense that this is just happiness. We think, I am happy. This is a good thing. This is real happiness. We really are very kind of confident with that. But what we have to do is actually really check well and examine really well that kind of happiness, and check if it really is truly happiness or not. Because this kind of suffering, the all-pervasive suffering of the compounded, because that is very subtle, then if we don't really check very well and examine, we will not be aware of it, and we won't come to understand it. It's very hard to perceive that suffering. And the subtle type of suffering is difficult to perceive, whereas obviously the coarse kind of suffering that we go through, coarse pain, it was very easy for us to recognize that as pain, as truly being pain. So this is why we have to check very well and think about it logically and so on, and read our texts to see, to really get to the bottom of the nature of this kind of suffering.
경쟁 당보대 가르스나 언뜻 따지 전들이 보신 경쟁 당보대 가르스나 ngaranzo 대화대 미다바래 ko takba do yinata digire 대화를 라비에 대화대 미대화래 미다바래 미다바 인데 규르 그랬더니 동알질 레벨 그래 제상 대화대 미다바 인데다 대화대 동알래도 와 대화대라 때네 드네 동알 레벨 용도 가르스나 대화대 미다바래 딱바 말와 단다버도 미성 미제 미들다 따온데 미제직 기부 중격이 미 통해요 말이야. 잠벌링 대가. 그렇죠? 대화리기도 양, 동알리기도 양, 대화리기도 양, 동알리기도. 대화니 동알리기도 어디 겸생하래. 대화도 미다고 임비가. 대화도 규로하진 임비게잖아. 대화도 규레 메나, 대화도 미다고 마이나, 동알리기 말와. 재상 대외게 띵라 미다고 해야지. 대화들라 동알 캡이요래 라이들.
So we can start to do that now, actually, to check and really examine how this all-pervasive suffering of the compounded is, how that is a reality, and how our experiences of happiness are actually suffering. So the first reason for this is that our experiences of happiness are impermanent. If this type of happiness were lasting and permanent, then it would be fine. There would be no problem. But our happiness is not lasting and permanent. It will change into suffering. So for this reason, that happiness actually has the nature of suffering, because it changes. It will never last forever. It will always change into suffering. So if we look at people in the world, there's no person on earth who lives their entire life being happy continually, nonstop for their entire life. They always happy for temporarily, and then suffer, and then happy, and then suffer, and so on. And so if we consider in this way, we can see how our experiences of happiness are actually the nature of suffering, because they change into suffering. They don't last.
코로와 갑기 제몰라 대화남이야 요마이 중세 대양 규르의 동알이요 스테 규르의 동알이요 시도 미다바레스라 미다바이나 다 동알로와 대화디 규르사서.
And there's a verse taught by Guru Rinpoche where he said, within the samsara, which is like the point of a needle, there's no happiness at all. And even if there may be some happiness, sometimes it is actually the suffering of change. So this this kind of a temporary experience of happiness will immediately, sooner or later, it will change and turn into suffering. So this is not really true happiness. It's in fact suffering. It's just part of the process of suffering.
말랑도 딱지 전에 때나 이번 때 때바이나 직든지 감나 끼니 근데 대화 장고 영행기 매직 딱지 전 따나 메시들라고 말. 직든지 감나 끼니 송데 마시 바로 기부 장고 영행미.
네, 정말.
딱지 전에 이 말.
So if we look at the world and see, check carefully, it's very clear that there is not a single person who is happy their entire life from the moment they're born until they die.
그 많이비 금전데 가랑 아주 딱지 쳐보러 와. 많이 발라 샤샤야 말아. 많이비 금전데 가르스나 대화도 기로에 비게저와. 대화도 미다바에 비게저와. 때라 딱지 당 거라. 미닥시비 동알시 승을. 대화도 기로로나 다 미다바래. 미다바시나 다 동알이 임바시기레스.
So we have to check, why is that the case, that there's not one person who lives their entire life completely happy the entire time. We shouldn't just leave it at that and say, okay, that's not the way it is. That's the way it is. There's nobody who is happy their whole life. We should actually check, why is that the case? And if we check why that is the case, the reason is that that our kind of happiness is impermanent. That's why nobody can be happy their whole life, because the happiness is impermanent. And then there's another saying that if you understand impermanence, then you understand suffering. Yeah, if you understand impermanence, then you understand suffering. So if we understand the way, in this way, looking at our situation of how happiness works in the world, we see that it is entirely permanent and it doesn't last. We see that it never lasts. And then we get a real insight into suffering and how that is suffering.
미닥시비 동알 가르치기로서는 다시 대화지요라. 다시 대화지요라는 거죠. 네 대화디 규용데 미닥바르도아. 미닥바디 가와를 때니 중거래. 대화를 때니 중도아. 단 대화를 때니 중용디 단 대화디니 동알을 규르거라. 동알을 규용데 다데 동알디 대화닐레도 쓰는 하고로아. 동알 시기레스다 대화디 동알 임바시에르 되고서.
So if we look at our experiences of happiness that we have. We all have these experiences of happiness, and but then they always change. They're never lasting. So actually, it's kind of like in the nature of the happiness, or caused by the happiness, in a way that those experiences are not lasting. And then, because these experiences of happiness have this quality of not being lasting, they will end and turn into suffering, transform into suffering. And so we can see that it's actually inherent in the happiness itself that there is suffering there. In other words, because the happiness has this quality of not lasting and changing into suffering, that suffering in that way is inherent in the happiness itself, due to that quality of not being lasting and changing.
견생이바디 가르스나 드니 견생이바디 ngarancho 세사나에 추동나에 고역나에 강발라 되나에 드로나에 가리 제바 예나한테 될 동알게 지기 규래.
Then the second reason to get into of how this all-pervasive suffering of compounded operates is that whatever we do in our life, we eat food, we drink, and so on, and we get different kind of clothes and wear clothes and stay in different places in our house and so on, go from here to there. And so whatever of these activities we do, they will all actually lead to suffering.
Penang and also Kala Dabajila Chashana, Manzoina, Kalashindu, Jisa, nothing Trojan, Kibala, Sigra, and also to Tong Tibera. In I am Chugi Dodan Latiana, Tini, Nesul Dodan Latina in the Chayo Mare. Around the Satse, Tungze, Kangbook, Sola Deloy, Semjenji Sola Delwa, Tigvegi Lela Deloy. They Deloy Yova Ding around the Kudu.
So we all have this kind of way of living where we eat, when we eat a very delicious meal, we say, oh, this is so great, I'm so satisfied, that meal is so tasty, and so on. We all think that is like that, isn't it, in our lives? Yeah, so if we consider that to be experience of happiness, we have that, we all think in that way. But if we really check it, and if we look at it according to the reality and according to the Dharma, this is actually not the case, because all of those foods and the drinks that we take, they're all connected to taking the lives of sentient beings. They're all connected with damaging the lives of sentient beings or taking the lives of sentient beings. And so when we are enjoying this food and drink, actually that negativity of harming sentient beings and taking the life of sentient beings will actually fall on us, and it will harm us, in fact.
Zapatu Rambajiki Karisonere. Pidna, Tabushik Chashane, Salatabi Capsu in Ayantini, Sai Tingla be Budin to Wogla, Sawala Kedishi, Sawala be Budin to Tengla Lepshis, Yamata, Tet the second Tabuera, Tende so Mambu, Chinta de Chungara. Tende indicates a trade, Dodo Chixana, Budo Chixawa, and Dipanyamson. And Dunga Redota.
So, for example, Peltro Rinpoche, he taught that Peltro Rinpoche, he explained this in terms of eating rice. So, of course, in order to eat rice, we need to plant it in the ground. And in the process of that planting the rice, the insects, or in the plowing, or the planting and all the preparation that goes on when you're planting the rice, the insects that are below the ground, they get brought to the surface above the ground and die. And then there's insects that live above the ground and they get pushed underneath the ground and die in that way. So rice is caught up in that, killing those insects. And so he said that actually eating one grain of rice has the equivalent amount of negativity. It's the same kind of negative action as killing one insect.
Today, Manzo Tungal Tawa Tenzola Samloji Tang, Tungal Rakpa Tenzola Samloji Tang Ina, Karsangi Kong to Shuba Nashin, Korwa May Hope Tabu. Korwa Simbe Ling Tabu, Korwa Tudulji Sound Tabu, Korwa Kapi Zemo Tabu, Chade Yorda.
So if we consider our coarse suffering in this way, and consider our subtle suffering in this way very carefully, then we will arrive at what I taught you last time, which is that samsara is like a pit of fire, and it's like a den of poisonous snakes, and samsara is like like an island of rakshasa demons. Yeah, so it's like these things. The samsara is like a pit of fire and a den of poisonous snakes, an island of rakshasa demons, and so on. Now you can see why that is true if you examine our course suffering and self-suffering in this way.
뭐야? 어다 대답을 동안들라 양 알아는 저기 동안 많이 봐. 양 대화래 삼생구도 출바.
So this is how what we consider to be happiness. We think that our happiness is not actually suffering. We think that these are just experiences of true happiness. So we can see now how this is actually a mistake and it's a delusion.
양 알아는 저기 있더니 짱와라 미장와라 양은 저 짱와 생기라 말은 저 수부디다 오늘 저는 미장와래 봐. 이나양은 저 짱만 생기라.
And then now we consider our bodies to be clean, but actually our bodies by nature are actually dirty and unclean.
쪽발라 짱만 진나 출라.
And this is a mistaken perception or delusion, isn't it? To take something that is dirty and unclean and consider it to be clean. And also we take what is not lasting and impermanent, we take that to be lasting and permanent. We think of ourselves as being really lasting and permanent. We think, oh, yesterday I was here, today I am the same person here, and tomorrow I will be here again.
오늘 리베땅네 장고 당샤기 말한서 수부들의 제바지 죽나 말한서 삼배 와라 장추 주기도 와 태나신 있어 장추직 도사나 도사라 그냥 신바실래 고르마도 이마 장추디 되게 말아
장주잖아.
장보 river.
Oh,
river when come out say bridge. Saba then change by change.
Yeah. So when we look at a river, the same as when we look at a river that the water that's coming under the bridge of a river, for example, it's never the same water. It's constantly new water. It's never lasting as the same water. So in the same way, ourselves as we were yesterday, they are actually completely gone. And today we are a new person, which we're not the same. We didn't last from yesterday to today, and then also tomorrow, we won't. This person that we are today will not last until tomorrow. We'll be new again tomorrow. And if we think that yesterday I was here as myself, and then today I'm still here as the same person. Tomorrow I will be here as the same person again. If that's the case, then we would have three selves, and this is not true, is it?
바율로 영화 제제제도 그래. 결혼하면 아메리카로 열어. 그 거예요, 된다. 이거 말해. 그래서.
이게 그냥 바율로 그래.
바율 제대.
So for example, if some of us were in Nepal last year, and then now we are not there anymore, we went back to our own country, then that person obviously is not the same person who's in Nepal, who is in Nepal. It has to be a different person when they're in a new place, now in the new place.
근데 이마 도서를 주기 제가 단도 떼요 말에. 갈대 여봐 이나 딱봐 이나 떼요 요거라.
And we can't, those activities that we've done in the past, like being in a different place, like in Nepal and so on, where is that now? We cannot find that now. There's no seeing that anymore. And those previous actions that we've done in the past, they can't be seen anymore. So if we were the same person as we were back then we would be able to find these things. Those things would be showing up for us.
이나야 등산 뒤질라다 출절망 볼리디 빠르잡니 아니 나니마 바율라 침바이니스 야나가 아리라 침바이니스 로 니스미질라 땡기도 와 근데 땡바데 바율 마라와 빠르와 코단 다오라 마 다오지 바우달라 야나가 마라와.
So, but nowadays we have some all this technology, so we can take photographs and so on, and take photographs of ourselves in a different country and say, oh, I was in America at this time, and we can see the photographs some days after we were there, or I was in Nepal at that time and see the photograph. But this is not actually really us. We can't really find the person in that location anymore. Like if Lama is saying, if he was at the Bodha Stupa, if there were like even if there's a picture of him at Bodha Stupa, then you would have to be able to find him at Bodha Stupa to say he was really there. But you can't find those things anymore. They're not lasting.
딱 발라 양가는 딱 와송다 대출레스 된대기 짱대 딱딱이 다 먼저 출대요. 다 출바 될라 먼저 가르치기를 현착기기를. 다 먼저 감성 걸어와도 출발와. 이내 먼저 될 가기도 와. 잘라랑 오볼라 가기래 밀라 가기래 빙자라 가기래 다 강이나 가우 멍구지여라다. 되니 착 당와야 되는 여러와 출대.
당가니는
당와.
당화.
단단히 현착라 그러다 가서 봐봐도 현착라. 현착도 현바. 출백이 출라 현바 죽다.
So in this way, we consider what is not lasting, we consider it to be lasting and permanent. And so all of these delusions and mistaken perceptions of things as being, as having a self, being clean, being happy, and being lasting and permanent, it's due to these delusions and these mistaken perceptions that we will give rise to attachment. We will have so much attachment and clinging to our lives. We always think we just have this approach to life that we think, oh, this is this is a great life. Look at all these nice things. This food is great. These people are great. My family here, I like them so much, and so on. And so we get caught up in that mode of being attached to the world in this way due to those delusions, and we really consider the world to be a very good thing. We're happy about it and attached to it in this way.
다 된대기 현작 숙천보증 안절로 여대요. 다디 현반에 마철 바르도 테네 가랑도 최 약보 용토에 깔래가고 시다차그리.
So we all have this attachment and clinging to the world and to our lives and the things in our lives. And as long as we have that attachment and this clinging to our lives in this way, it is it's very difficult to really practice the Dharma well and be a good practitioner.
대인들 다 하나도 단다 로독 남바시 로독 남바시스와 로 독 세와디 가르스는 나는 주들 출바될 현착지요래 딜로디다 도구구요래 술 독촉라 연구구요래 착촉라 마침바치는 독촉라 연구구요래 대 독버 제발라 로 넘버시 있으라고디래 로 독스기도 가리도고래 출낭라 신진 착바지요 어디 도구구요래 대 마독나 내가랑도 출낭될 신진 착바디요나 내가랑 좋다 네 쪽바다 붙이 차가 되겠다. 네 쪽발라 되니 칼라 야부 가질로나야 야부지 되게 말아. 네 두고 여바질라 되니 칼라로나 칼라양 두도 주르러 와. 네 정말 속으로 와. 로 도구 그러다. 로 동나 난네디 정말 잡아래. 지에 로디 레벨.
So this is the purpose of the four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara, or the four mind changing. Yeah, they're called the four thoughts that turn the mind, or the four practices that turn the mind, reverse the mind. And this is actually what they are for, is to what are we turning our mind away from, or what are we reversing our mind away from? It is exactly this attachment to our mistaken perceptions, or this attachment that we have, which is a delusion. Otherwise, if we don't practice these four thoughts that turn the mind or reverse the mind, and reverse that attachment and clinging to these deluded perceptions and these mistaken perceptions, then we will be like a dirty vessel for the Dharma. We won't be able to practice the Dharma just as. So what we have to do is actually to clean our mind in that way, reverse our mind, just in the same way that you would clean a bowl or whatever that you're going to put food in. If you have a dirty bowl and you want to eat food out of a dirty bowl, it's not going to be right. It won't be proper. It could even be like a poisonous and harmful and so on. So in the same way, we have to clean the vessel to eat the food. So the same way we have to clean our mind by reversing the attachment to this mistaken perception.
당연히 단다들 가자는 슈바잖아들은 예종 가리임 비고르디다 좋진 슈바레스라 다 예종디기 예종 개발처비기 융우마디다 로도나바시드레스 규자와 잡으데 자와 로도나바시스도 자와세라 고지 첨부요래.
So last time I was teaching you about renunciation in general. What does renunciation mean? What is it, and so on. And now we're getting into the cause for renunciation, what will allow us to generate renunciation, which is the four thoughts that turn the mind. And so these are really the main kind of cause for renunciation, and kind of like the root of renunciation are these four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara. And this is actually a very important and crucial thing, how this is the root of the renunciation.
가장 여기 예종 말하자로 더 보고 이러와 다 예종디 제부샤소 다 로도 넘버시디 유샤 싸와도 아니 싸와라고 김전 가르스나 싸와데라 때는 행동도 버지라게 배샤와나 행동기 싸와데라 때는 행동도 깨용 거래 행동데라 때는 행동기 연락 깨용 거래 행동기 연락데라 때는 행동기 로마 깨용 거래 행동기 로마 데라 때는 행동기 제부 깨용 거래 싸와서고 김전데.
So renunciation, we have already gone over how important renunciation is, and now that renunciation, now we can here we now consider it as the result that we are going for, and so now we have to learn about the cause for that result of renunciation, and the cause is the four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara. It's the cause for renunciation, and also you can say like a root of renunciation. So, for example, it works just in the same way that a root of a tree, that how roots of trees may work, that it's out of the root of a tree that the tree itself, the trunk of the tree and so on, will grow. And then it's out of that trunk of that tree, the branches will grow. And then out of the branches of the tree, leaves will grow out of the branches. And then from the leaves, we get the fruits and flowers. So it works the same way here with the four thoughts as the roots of
로도 넘버 15대 싸워한다 보지. 로도 넘버 15대 계란기 약고 냠는 제바이나 텔라 땐데 말하면서 동을 시에버 제 무적이 된저 빵주 그래. 동을 시에버 추루 제주 그래. 근데 이제 동을 시에버 제주 발라 때네 계란기 귤라 되니 직낭 신로 교시기 용 그래. 근데 교시기 발라 때네 되니 땅이 좀 개고라. 생애 중에 대부분 싸워디 또도 넘버시 따다 책도 봐.
So the way that this will work is that it's through practicing the root of renunciation, the cause of renunciation, which is the four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara. Through practicing those, then we will be able to be free of those factors that prevent us from understanding suffering. As you remember, also suffering is the cause of renunciation, understanding suffering. And so through practicing the four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara, we will be able to be free of these things that prevent us from understanding suffering, and then we will be able to fully understand suffering. And due to that knowledge and realization of the truth of suffering, we will be able to have a sense of fear and a sense of aversion to samsara and a sense of weariness for samsara. And through those senses of fear, aversion, and weariness to samsara, we will eventually be able to have a real renunciation. So this is, it works out exactly in that way, and that how the four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara as the cause for renunciation works out perfectly in that way.
다든지 예정이하고 지여바이나더니 가정의 공도 쉬운바 로체수도 도바 연구요래 담배치기 냠는 때부 자도부 요래 최양 가바 둑둑부 요라 당 예정이하고 맨바이나 더니 로체수도에라 데스 가고 자도.
So as I explained before, that then when we get renunciation, renunciation allows our mind to go into the Dharma, allows our mind to enter into the Dharma. And then after that, renunciation will then allow ourselves to have a stable, very good, stable practice. And then once we have a very good and stable practice, the renunciation that we have will then further allow us to accomplish the Dharma in the pure, authentic way. So first of all, it's difficult to really have our mind enter into the Dharma if we don't have renunciation.
예정이하고 여당 메디 아니 나랑 저들이 스타트 제고 그래서 당가랑 그 로체라 도토그도 도금도 따지 제고래서 저랑 그 로체라 도토바이나 되는 예정이하고 예다래서 다 예정이하고 메나 되니 로그 쳐서 줘야 되다 갈래가고 차서와라 당가랑 저 따지 제고래 당가랑 로체스 도와 셰바데 간다실라 쓰고 그래서는 3주 출레메 봐 3주 출레메 봐 시글라 로체스 도와 쓰게 니 추지 최고야 니 추기 냠는 최고야 니 상이 추 최고야 드링 최마도 삼주 매봐 삼주 최리 매봐 된대지 고고래 된대 일로 된 간절 두게.
So we have to check ourselves very well, examine ourselves, and check if we have renunciation or not. And then also check if our mind has entered into the Dharma properly, if our mind has entered into the Dharma. And if we find that our mind has actually entered into the Dharma, this is a sign that we do have renunciation, that we have a proper renunciation. But now we have to understand, what does it mean to have our mind go into the Dharma? Basically, what that means is that we don't really think about anything else but the Dharma. We're not really concerned with anything else except the Dharma. What we think about day to day is that I have to practice the Dharma today, and then in the morning I think I have to practice the Dharma, and we're thinking concerned about practicing the Dharma in the afternoon and evening and so on, and all the time. If we are only concerned about the Dharma, only thinking about the Dharma, then this is what is referred to as our mind entering the Dharma.
근데 당가랑 줄라 로치스 도와디 마랑도 줄라 딱지 제바이나 당가랑 좀 인젠직라 추진 20접시여와 인젠직라 추진 20접시낭라 계란기 로치스 도와 삼로 가지 땅기도 로치스 먼저와 삼로 가지 땅도 직대기 초스로와 삼로 가지 삼로 땅당 근데 삼로 땅나 로치스 도와도 빼 메신 용용을 계란랑 용용 예비 좀전 가래 계란랑 예종 충전마도 요 말해 어양랑도 삼로 땅당 추진 20접시 발랑 나 참참지 로고아 나 마다지 녀고아 나 총지 자고아 나 니지 로고아 나 자치 동고아 나 칼라지 사고아 근데 샤다 삼니 직den게 삼로 장바지 삼로 때 맛에 땅 두고다 저기 저로 땅 두고면 돼 추지 인셉션 나는 거 저기 저로 가서 땅 그래 땅 두고면 돼 재장에 좀 있다.
So we have to check, when we're checking whether our mind has entered the Dharma, we can think about how the day is composed of 24 hours and think about all the time in one day, and then look at that time and then look at how many thoughts we have of going to the Dharma, of practicing the Dharma, and how many thoughts we have that are not related to practicing the Dharma, that aren't into the Dharma path. And generally, if we check in this way, we will see that we have relatively few thoughts over the course of the day practicing the Dharma. Relatively little of our time during one day is spent concerned with the Dharma. And this is the reason for this is because our renunciation is very poor, or we only have a small amount of renunciation. Most of us, we think about going out, during the day. We may think, oh, I'm going to go out today. What am I going to do today? Oh, I'm going to go eat, and then we spend our time enjoying eating. I'm going to go have a cup of tea here and there. I'm going to go look at this or that and meet this person and so on, do some, make some money and so on, things like that. So generally, we are constantly concerned with these things, and the energy and concern and thought we put into the Dharma is relatively little. And this is the way that most people spend their time. They really are just spend most of their time and energy thinking about these kinds of things. And so this is how we should examine and see how much are we actually thinking about the Dharma and how much are we thinking about the worldly things or other things.
근데 이 삼롱년 봐. 가서라. 나랑 내가 친. 근데 이제 삼롱년 받은 저 아니 탕아 칼라지 신부치 사고 나 강바치 소고 나 뭐라지냐고 나 총접 협상지 소고 삼바대 되네 로처스로 세게 말다. 직된 척수로 왔어요. 로직된 척수로 와 세게 차고. 딜로 척수로 와 자금인도 와. 안나 아라운절로 거에 딜로 척수로 와 구구여로.
So these kind of thoughts that we have and these concerns that we have day by day are actually ultimately negative thoughts and actually bring us harm. Thinking about I'm going to try to look for a new house for myself, or I'm going to try to get a new car. I'm going to try to make some money, do some business, make some money, and so on. And I'm going to try to find some really delicious food to eat, and so on. These are the kind of thoughts that we have day by day. And this is not what we call our mind going into the Dharma, our mind entering the Dharma. This is our mind entering into the world, into the mundane world. So this is actually what we don't want, right? We want to practice the Dharma. We want to be Dharma practitioners. So yeah, this is what we don't want. So our mind to go into the mundane world in this way.
근데 그라 로체스 도와디 구구여다 뒤다. 근데 로체스 도와디 구구여나 딱 이정도 구구여.
So we need our mind to enter into the Dharma. And for this purpose, in order to get our mind to enter into the Dharma, what we need for that is renunciation.
양 예정하고 나랑 길어 여나 나랑 기초기 냐면 템보 연기래. 딱 예정하고 매바이나 되는 축이 냐면 템보 연구 말해.
And then in order to have a really good and stable practice, also we need renunciation. If we don't have renunciation, then it's very difficult to get a good and stable practice. It won't happen. But if we do have good renunciation, good level of renunciation, we will be able to have a good, stable Dharma practice.
전대기 냠내랑 그 길어 템보 영토발라 가리고 그래. 예정하고 구구여.
So in order to get that the real good stable practice, then we need good level of renunciation.
이말라마 연된 공부 생에서 공부 생활에 로종기 명아 진예바 랑줄라 년절 맞제나 삭잔지 카당 졸롬디 추식례 냠버 기로왕 송래 대 가르송에서나 로종 단 로도 남바시기 냠낸 로종에 대 로종기 냠낸 낸된 전에 삽삽 전에 나랑 그 줄라 저로 맞제바 있나 되기 년라 되네 간도 나탕다 검사거든데 제와나 타마 대육의 년가 요래라 그래
So there's a saying by a Lama called Yunten Gombo, right? Yunten Gombo, and he said, "The Tsering tada kong Yunten Gombo is on the Tsering." Yunten Gombo is Tsering.
Yunten Gombo is Tsering. 로종기 명아. 로 종에 나한테 로 디파 줄이에 단단 가서 로도 넘바시도 로 줄이에로 와 데라 로종라 로 종고 로종기 명아 냠네 명아 투모 마임 받던저 나랑기 셈질라 낸덴체 삽삽체네 마장바 이나 세월에 마장체 대기냐라더니 나장 라곰 딘데 체 대바이나 대빵에 인가 요래라 빵나 드는 냠네 템보 마청하러 와
So what Yunten Gombo Lama Gombo said was, if we don't practice the pith instructions of mind training well, And here, this practice of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind is a practice of mind training. If we don't practice these instructions of mind training well, and then jump into the practice of reciting mantras and visualizing deities and so on, and these other practices, then there's a danger that we will give up those practices. So first we have to train the mind, practice mind training, practice the 4 thoughts that reverse the mind, and then get into reciting mantras and visualizing deities and so on. Otherwise, if we don't have, otherwise if we don't first practice the mind training of the 4 thoughts to turn the mind, then and start to do those other practices without that mind training, then it won't be very stable, and we may give up those practices. So this is what is meant by not having a good and stable practice. Yeah.
자, 등산기 뒤져라 된데 망보 도와. 자, 버틀게 강송도서. 덤바게비 사벤스. 쳇되라, 쳇되라, 밀라 쳇된 쳇치마 죽마 되라. teni chödengi ni pa yugni ani sasangcha kangbagi pala cham digimri res temba gebi sapens sasang tembo temba chödengen chödedi chöden semedi teni ko chöpa yugni teni chöpa yugni kimbacheni sasangi pombo pala tabucheni digres
sasangi pombo
pala pawara baba 강번 난기 김단 난기 조디 수르 뱀보디 빨라로 뱀바게비 사벤스 뱀보
So this is also what was explained by Peltrul Rinpoche, that the pomosana de
조디 강번 난기 조수레 아마레 빨라레
pombo gepe saben
뜸바 쳐등겐 세니마 밀라 쳐들라 밀라 쳐드니 아 저거로냐지 세메라 코랑 사상지 pombo
so this is an explanation, teaching that Peltrul Rinpoche would talk about, which is that you can be a Dharma teacher, and this can become a cause for becoming the kind of like a leader later in life. So the idea is that you spend the early part of your life involved with the Dharma and teaching Dharma and so on, but because your practice is not good and stable, as we've been talking about, then and the later part of your life, you give up with Dharma and start a family and become a head of the household, a leader in that way, and you get involved in the worldly life.
차절 게베 신착스 마차와당 타차송 신참에 스나고양 최대라디라고 제 체멜라양 신착 전부 지네 차절 게베 속속 선화되거든요. 자와다 타스는 체멜라양 균으로지 망부 싸거든요. 근데요레스.
Right. So the first one is the Dharma teacher, who is later in life becomes the head of the household or leader, the head of the household. And then another thing he would say is there's the renunciant, you can say, someone who's given up all worldly activities, who later in life is a kind of attached to the things of the world and ends up just accumulating wealth and so on, that kind of thing. So this is talking about somebody who in the beginning of life, they say, I'm not going to get involved in worldly things at all, not going to be attached to any worldly activities, renounce everything. and then later in life they lose that sense and become involved with they lose that practice and become involved with in accumulating material wealth and getting really attached to material wealth.
대가나 신기드네 쳐봐 쳐록스 쳐칭한지도 쳐록바차 네 잡아 쳐록스 차 대가나 신기드네 낭바 치롤바차 대상만 가와라 때문에 자용을 냠람 탈마치마 가와라 때문에 중화를 예정의 야보 매발 때문에 중화를
and likewise we have people who are Dharma practitioners and then they give it up, they stop practicing Dharma, and monks who eventually give up their monks' vows and they disrobe, and likewise the people who practice the Buddhism and then they give up Buddhism and begin to practice another religion. So all of these things, all of these ways in which we can fail to complete the path and to really complete our Dharma practice, bring it to the result. What is the reason for all of these ways in which that can happen? The reason is that there is a lack of renunciation. It's not having enough renunciation that leads to this result of not being able to complete the path to its result.
딘데기 냠낸 템부 메바 냠낸 디메바 차송아이나 근데 냠낸 타르친도 말해 냠낸 타르마치나 좀 최양다바 두두 말해 최양다바 두마투나 근데 고려 동안에 타르두 말해.
So if we don't have a good and a stable practice, as I've just described, then we won't be able to complete the path to the end. We won't be able to complete our Dharma practice to the result. And then if we cannot complete the path and bring our Dharma practice to the final completion, final result, then this is also the way in which we are not able to accomplish the Dharma purely and genuinely. This is not accomplishing the Dharma purely and genuinely. And if we don't accomplish the Dharma purely and genuinely, then we will not be able to free ourselves from suffering. Okay, so this is the end of the teaching today. Now we all together recite the dedication and aspiration.
Sonam de ramje zibani tobne nyebe ranam bamje de jenga nachi balam drupla sibe zolen do ando warai sho